lead code problem, missing number. So this problem has been categorized as an Amazon coding interview question. And so this question you can expect to be asked by the hiring manager. So usually there are several rounds in an Amazon interview. So one round would be with the actual hiring manager. So for that particular interview, you won't have too many coding questions. So it'll be more like a conversation with you to see if you're a good fit for the team. But usually during the interview, he'll ask you one simple coding question, and during the question, he'll change the requirements to make it slightly trickier. And it's basically to check how you're handling projects where the requirements change in the middle. So this problem, I think, is a good example of that. So for this problem, you're given an array of integers, and all of them are distinct. So they could be anywhere in the range 0 to n. So you have to find the only number which is missing. So here's a problem where they have the three numbers 3, 0, 1, and the missing number is 2. So from the 0 to 3, 2 is the missing number. So there are many ways one can solve this problem. So you could solve it by using a hash set. For example, you store all the numbers in the input array, and then you traverse down the list and see which number is missing. So I've solved this problem using a Boolean array where each index represents the number in the array, and we set all the values to false, and then we traverse the list, set it to true, and then we see which number is missing by traversing the Boolean array. So you can solve it in a many number of ways, but afterwards I think they'll add a new requirement. They'll say, we want you to solve the problem in with O of 1 extra space complexity and O of n runtime complexity. So all of these all of these problems require you to create a data structure like a hash set or Boolean array. So the space complexity will be O of n, since where n is the number of elements in the input array. So for this problem, I think there are a couple of ways to solve it. One way is to sort the entire array and afterwards traverse down the list and see which number is missing. So the space complexity will be constant, but the time complexity will be n of log n. So, this is an example of a problem where, depending on how you solve it, the manager will keep adding some extra complexity to it. So for this problem, you're required to know, I think, a little bit of max. So there's something known as a Gaussian summation, where if you're given an array of 1 to n, the easy way to solve it is using a mathematical formula n multiplied by n plus 1 by 2. So this is a useful little formula I think you should memorize. And so if you Google it, I think there'll be an explanation on how that works. So I won't spend too much time going into it, but essentially that's the way to solve this problem. So first thing we need to do is calculate the sum. So int sum is equal to. So this is essentially the formula. So I've calculated what the sum should be. So this is the sum of all the integers from 1 to n. Now the next thing we need to do is subtract this with all the numbers inside of the integer array. So I'll just create a for loop. So now I'm subtracting the sum with all the values inside of the integer array. So at the end of this, the value which is remaining is the missing number. So yeah, here's an example where all the test cases have passed. So let's submit it. So yeah, the time complexity for this will be O of n, since we are traversing down the input array once. The space complexity will be O of 1, since the only thing we're doing is calculating the sum and subtracting. So it doesn't matter how big the input array is, we'll just have a constant space complexity since we're only calculating the sum.